Hello everybody, Mark, aka the Nerdy Punk, back again tonight for a new video. Hope you all are doing well. I hope you're having a great weekend as we are into Friday night. Tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through every movie that I watched in February of 2022. I know we're almost to mid-March already, so I'm a little bit late on this video, but getting ready to go through the Letterboxd recap. I'm very excited to run through what I watched in February. A bit of a lighter month than, typical, but during the school year when I work, Monday through Friday, I definitely don't watch as many films as I do typically in my months where I have vacation time. So, hope you guys enjoy the video, and let's get started with the first movie. Alright, so the first movie I was able to watch this month was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, directed by David Fincher. This is, of course, Fincher's adaptation of the original Swedish film, which was itself an adaptation of the original novel from Sweden, written by Stieg Larsson. And I'm attempting to read the novel, but I'm quite a slow reader, so we'll see if I ever get through it. However, I really love this adaptation in particular. Just the subject matter of the film, the snowy setting. I always try to watch this every year during the winter, and if I can, during the biggest snowstorm of the year, which was what I was able to do this year. Early February, we had a really large winter storm, and I think it left about, 8 inches of snow. It was the most that we got this year. We didn't get as much this year as we do in some years. However, being able to watch this with the snow falling outside late at night, drinking some great Swedish vodka inside under the covers, it was a really good time. And I always loved this film, but it's just such an incredible immersive experience for me, and I adore watching it in the middle of winter. So this was one of my favorite movie experiences that I've watched, this year, and, one of my favorite in all of film ever. So The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, if you haven't seen it, it's one that I highly recommend. I think it's one of David Fincher's best. It's my personal favorite. David Fincher, a filmmaker who's made such incredible films in the past. And if you have the opportunity to watch this during a cold spell of cold weather, it's perfect. So, highly recommended. Alright, so like I said, because of this snowstorm, I had a few days off of work because our school was closed for a few days. So I ended up finishing Season 2 of Twin Peaks, which means that I finished the entire original series that was broadcast back in the early 1990s. I really enjoyed Season 2. I think I agree with many of the criticisms of it, how it kind of loses its way towards the middle of the season. And then David Lynch returns to direct the final couple episodes, and he has more say as to how the series ends as opposed to how the second season went, because the second season did feel it was definitely more quirky, more funny perhaps, but didn't deliver in the powerful subject matter that the first season delivered on and the beginning of the second season. But it's still one of my favorite TV series ever. I'm excited to eventually dive into Season 3, which is the limited series the entire thing was directed by David Lynch, so I'm excited for that and to see what his vision was to continue the series, because the original series does end on a bit of a cliffhanger. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I've heard nothing but great things, as I do with almost every David Lynch work. So continuing with my David Lynch journey this year, my year of Lynch, I was able to finish Twin Peaks, the original series. So immediately after finishing Twin Peaks, I went directly into the film, Twin Peaks Firewalk with Me, that came out right after the original series ended. And I have the Criterion Collection release for this film, and that's a great release. It's got tons of special features, including some interviews with Cheryl Lee herself, and Cheryl Lee really shines in this film. She delivers such an incredible performance. It's so depressing, dark, creepy, etc. And you really feel for her and all of the struggles that she's going with in this film. It deals with the last week or so in the life of Laura Palmer, and it goes into detail about, what she's experiencing, but it has basically none of the quirkiness of the original series. It has nothing like the charming kind of moments. Kyle MacLachlan as Agent Dale Cooper was barely in this movie at all. It's very dark, and one of the complaints that I have with the film, while I really enjoyed it, and it was a very good experience, the theatrical cut, David Lynch had to cut so much out of it that in some cases you don't get the full story. And so the David Bowie scene is, in particular, the David Bowie scene makes absolutely no sense in the theatrical cut, but when you watch the extended cut, which is, there's not like one extended cut, but there is the extended material called The Missing Pieces. That is available on the Criterion Collection release. It's also available on the Blu-ray set that I have for the original series. That really fills in a lot of the gaps in terms of, what you're missing with the theatrical cut of the film. Because I think this was a case of studio interference kind of ruining the final product a little bit. That being said, though, the entire film was fantastic, and even the theatrical cut, I really enjoyed. It was just clearly missing some stuff. So my whole Twin Peaks original series and movie experience is done for now, and I'm excited to move on to the limited series. Alright, so next up, I got on a little bit of a romantic comedy / romantic film kick in February, so we got closer to Valentine's Day. That's not normally my jam, but for some reason I was just kind of in the mood to watch a film like that. So I was able to watch Begin Again, which is a film that I've seen probably at least 5 times before in the past. Stars Keira Knightley, Mark Ruffalo. I think I originally discovered it back in the day because I was a huge fan of Maroon 5. And the movie has Adam Levine in it, in one of the most unlikable characters in any movie, in my opinion. Adam Levine's character is just a douchebag, I think, in every sense of the word in this movie. However, the film itself is really good. I really enjoy it. It's one of my absolute favorite. Like, if I'm going to watch a romantic movie, which you could even say this movie isn't really a romantic movie. It kind of stretches the boundaries of that. I mean, you do have some romantic tension between the main characters of the film, and there is kind of those sappy moments, but, like, the two main characters, they're not really, it's not like your typical story where, they all end up together in the end. It's all happily ever after. Like, there's some different, without giving spoilers, there's some different paths taken throughout this movie, but it's also one of the best movies about music that I've ever seen. I don't necessarily think it qualifies as a musical necessarily, but it has tons of music in it, and the soundtrack is fantastic. So if you haven't checked out Begin Again, it is on Netflix. That's where I watched it this month. So definitely a recommended title for me. Alright, so continuing with that kind of romantic theme, my next movie was my first trip to the movie theater of the month, and that was to see Paul Thomas Anderson's new movie, Licorice Pizza. And I gotta say, I was really blown away by this. I expected to like it. I expected to think it was good. I didn't quite expect it to really shoot its way up my Best Picture rankings. I have not seen all of the Best Picture nominations, but out of the ones that I've seen, which I think is 6 at the moment, it's my favorite, I think. I really loved Licorice Pizza. It connected with me so much. And again, a bit of an unorthodox romantic movie. It's not like your typical, rom-com, where, it follows the same formula. It's a different type of movie. And it has a very unorthodox relationship at the core of it. But just the themes associated with the film is very funny. It has a fantastic score. If you want my in-depth thoughts on the movie, there's a video on my channel where I review the film, where I actually went to see it and gave immediate thoughts on it. So check out that video if you want more. But I absolutely loved Licorice Pizza. Next up, on Valentine's Day itself, actually, I decided I had to watch a movie about romance or love or something to do with that. So I decided to break open the Wong Kar-wai box set from Criterion, and I watched Chungking Express. And I really, really enjoyed Chungking Express. Wong Kar-wai has a very intense visual style to the way that he tells a story. But it's an interesting film. It's kind of broken up into two sections. So you have one story at the beginning, and then halfway through the movie, it kind of switches to another story. There's this overarching theme of loneliness and kind of reaching out for human connection of any kind. Like, you have a couple main characters here who are just getting out of long-term relationships and relationships that had failed, and that's a very relatable premise. I mean, we've all been through that in our lives. So just the kind of commentary on human connection and the emotions explored through the film, I was incredibly impressed with my first Wong Kar-wai experience, and I can't wait to dive into more. Alright, next up is another Criterion Collection release that I finally dove into, and this is The Ice Storm, directed by Ang Lee. Now, I have an entire video where I give in-depth thoughts about this movie, so if you're interested in that, definitely go to my channel and check out that video. I went through everything from the packaging, the special features, the film itself, etc. So, plenty of in-depth thoughts available. I was able to watch this during an ice storm, actually, and the film is set during an ice storm. So, another immersive winter weather watching experience, which I love. I love the winter. I know that sounds weird for some people, because some people just hate winter. It seems the majority of people would rather have hot weather. I'm the opposite. I'd rather have cold weather. It's not quite my favorite season. That would be fall, but winter is probably my second favorite season. Anyway, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought, it was relatively straightforward, but it also threw me a few curveballs I didn't quite expect. So I really enjoyed The Ice Storm from Ang Lee, and definitely one that I would recommend if you're considering, picking up any Criterion releases in the not-so-distant future. Alright, next up, I had a little bit of a Paul Thomas Anderson mood after watching Licorice Pizza, so I decided to rewatch Boogie Nights. I had seen Boogie Nights before, but I don't feel like I was quite in the right mindset the first time I watched it, and it didn't really hit with me as much as it did on this second viewing. This second viewing I enjoyed much more, and I still think I actually like Licorice Pizza more than this movie, but this is just, a classic film, classic cast in this movie. John C. Reilly, Mark Wahlberg, everybody's fantastic. This is the movie, I think, that really exploded Paul Thomas Anderson onto the big stage, and he definitely deserves it. He's a fantastic filmmaker, and I do want to get into even more of his stuff in the near future. Next up was my last trip to the movie theater of February 2022, and that was to see Death on the Nile, which was the first of kind of my top 10 to 15 most anticipated movies of the year. This movie, it's a sequel. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh. It's a sequel to Kenneth Branagh's Murder on the Orient Express from 2017. He's created this new Agatha Christie universe where he's starring and directing in these Agatha Christie stories. And I love a good whodunit movie. So, every time they release these, I'm pretty excited for it, to see it. I enjoyed Murder on the Orient Express, and I enjoyed Death on the Nile. I can't say it was an amazing movie. I forget exactly the grade that I gave it, but I want to say I gave it like a 3 out of 5, slightly above average, but nothing super special. I will say that my movie watching experience wasn't fantastic. So, quick story here, and then we'll move on. When I went to go see this, I went to see this in the theater that's closest to my house, which is in a very small town, so it's a very small theater. The theater that I was in was one of the smallest in the entire building. It was maybe holding about 50 seats max. Like, it was very small. So I'm in there getting ready to watch the movie, and then 2 minutes before the movie starts, I had been alone in the theater. 2 minutes before it starts, a big group of people comes in. Like 10 people or so come in, and almost all of them are sitting right behind me in the row behind me. And several older couples. And one lady feels, for some reason, the need to give her commentary throughout the entire film. Like she's the director of the movie or something, and she's giving the commentary on the Blu-ray release or something like that. Drove me nuts. So my opinion of it may have been a little bit lower than it would have been if not for that experience, but I don't think this is like a spectacular film or anything. I thought Gal Gadot was, decent in the main role. My opinion of her as an actress has kind of gone down a little bit in the past year or so, but I still think she has a lot of talent. And I think Kenneth Branagh is by far the best part of this movie. Armie Hammer is so-so. I was kind of impressed with Russell Brand's performance, but I think there's a wide variety of quality in the performances in this type of movie where you have this massive ensemble cast. So, Death on the Nile gave me what I wanted it to give me, and nothing more. Alright, the last movie for February of 2022 was Batman Begins. Now, I rewatched this as a part of a warm-up for The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, that came out on March 4th. Stay tuned for my March video, but there's also an entire video based on the Batman, so if you want my thoughts on the new Batman, definitely look at my channel, and you'll get that. However, I typically like to rewatch The Dark Knight before I watch any new Batman movie, and this time I decided to rewatch Batman Begins as well. It had been quite a while since I rewatched Batman Begins. I usually do The Dark Knight every year. The other two in the series, not quite as often. So, I had forgotten some of the plot points. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. It's a great one. I mean, I don't need to tell people that, but Christian Bale's Batman is fantastic, and I just enjoy this kind of dark, gritty origin story. So, Batman Begins is my final movie of the month. And that's it for February. I know this video was a little bit late. We're now basically midway through March, almost. So, the March one is just around the corner. Looking forward to tons of new movies and new movie watching experiences in the months ahead. Hope you all have an incredible day, and I will check in with you later. Bye.